Final score in Eugene, Oregon 42, Colorado 6. Feels good today if you're an Oregon Duck fan. You kind of feel like how Dan Lanning felt yesterday. You're fighting for wins and threw some shade now and made the claim that the opposition, more or less, it was implied that they're fighting for clicks. And to do what you did and to have the showing that you had, like I said, probably wake up feeling like you got the right guy as your head coach and feel pretty good about the way that your football team is built. Because all that's going to be said about Colorado, hey, they weren't really that good. Hey, they weren't really this. That's a good football team. And if you did not play your best football, if you had any take your eye off the ball syndrome for the Ducks yesterday, they would have hung around and they would have made it a game and they would have scored points and it could have been interesting in the second half. It wasn't the case. So we got more thoughts on this really quickly though. Oregon fans, make sure you subscribe right here. It's college football and nothing but college football every single day. We appreciate y'all being subscribed and a part of this channel. Also follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Piquel. Thank you in advance for that. So when it comes to what Oregon did yesterday, I don't know that we learned a ton that was new. Like going into the game, I think some of our suspicions were, hey, Oregon's going to be better on the line of scrimmage. That's their matchup. They should dominate that. They ended up doing that. Hey, when you dominate the line of scrimmage, especially offensively, and you can run the football, guess what else opens up? The pass game. They did that. Bo Nix was dealing. Hey, the defense personnel-wise should match up well enough to be able to kind of neutralize this Colorado passing attack. Got to the quarterback multiple times. Held Colorado's leading rusher to 31 yards. Like, it was domination. It was domination start to finish. And I think a lot of people expected that out of Oregon. Now, I was curious about that 23-point spread. I thought Oregon would win the football game. I was not sure about that spread. Oregon very quickly made it clear they were about to handle that spread. So, to be real, Oregon looks like a Tier 1 Pac-12 football team. Going into this game, assumed that Oregon would be a Tier 1 Pac-12 football team. Will absolutely be in that conference title race and in that conversation in November. You would imagine with that, they will be in the college football playoff conversation and race. And the thing that's encouraging to me about Oregon, on top of the way they looked against Colorado, you can take some things from that and just see the way they're built. Like, this team is extremely well-rounded. I know it was Colorado. I know it wasn't, the most formidable opponent on the line of scrimmage, but even so, the way they dominated up front, I feel really good about them if they have to play a team in the Big Ten in the college football playoff, or they end up playing a team in the SEC. I'm not saying that they have the advantage there. I'm just saying I feel good about them being able to hold their own in that capacity. Now, the major difference in yesterday's game for Oregon from some other games they've played, everybody got to see it. By nature of people having major interest in Colorado, everybody saw what happened yesterday. They got to see Bo Nix sling it around. They got to see the defense dominate. They got to see the weapons do what they did against that Colorado defense. So that's a little bit of a statement now to the rest of the country to kind of put them on notice like, hey, Washington, really good football team. USC, really good football team. Utah, really good football team. Don't forget about Oregon now. Bo Nix, I think, probably did some things for himself in that Heisman Trophy campaign a little bit. And I know those Bodacious shirts probably had a few extra shirts get sold. You only get so many opportunities to have a spotlight like that right now in the Pac-12 conference. I understand it's going to change, and maybe some of that's why you're moving to the Big Ten. But to be able to make good on that spotlight the way that you did has to feel good. And I think ultimately is just a nice little notch in the belt for the Ducks. So yesterday, there was a lot of opportunity, like I said at the top of this segment, for Oregon to kind of take their eye off the ball, because you're playing a team in Colorado with so much hype and so much excitement around them. And Dan Lanning alluded to it pregame. A lot of clicks are associated with Colorado. It would have been very easy for Oregon to make that game about a lot of things that had nothing to do with the game. Make it a trash-talking thing with Colorado. Make it a thing that's back and forth with them. And I didn't get any sense of that from Oregon. Saw them go out there, handle business, and that's the sign of a mature team. And mature teams play for big things in November, play for big things early in the new year. That's a key ingredient. You don't see immature teams go and play for those kinds of things. You just don't. You can be extremely talented, but if you're not mature, if you don't have a culture and identity in place to go compete for those things, you don't. Just the reality. And I think Dan Lanning, to this point, has established that and built that in Eugene, and you got to be excited about that. Now, when it comes to what Dan Lanning said pregame, I want to make sure we give that its due. Pregame, it's a clip. It's out there for everybody to see. ESPN was in there. Dan Lanning knew ESPN was in there, and he said, listen, man, Cinderella story ends today. Game's not played in Hollywood. It's played on the grass. We're fighting for wins. They're fighting for clicks. Okay? Like, he laid it out there for everybody. He made no negotiations about anything. He made it very clear for the entire world. And so, one, if you're a player for Oregon, you love that. For your coach to talk that cash and for you to then have the opportunity to go back it up and for Dan Lanning to have the confidence that his team would back it up takes a little extra something, takes a little bit of that extra edge. And all the good competitors, man, they have that edge. Dan Lanning, his team, they have that edge. So that's encouraging to see. The second part talked about his team being rooted in substance. And it just kind of got me thinking, man, how long have we thought about Oregon as that school with a million uniforms, that school with the Nike money, that school that is really flashy? Like, yes, they still have all those things, but I think with Dan Lanning's Oregon, it's exactly what he said. They're rooted in substance. And substance to me, when it comes to the football field, feels like a line of scrimmage thing, feels like an execution thing. And I understand that this isn't going to be the toughest competition they play the rest of the way. But as long as they continue to be rooted in that substance, I think they're going to have a chance now to do some really, really good things. I think they care about the right things, think they're made of the right things. And I think what Dan Lanning said was absolutely true. And I think it's a mark of the new era at Oregon. It kind of started with Mario Cristobal, and Dan Lanning has kind of taken it upon himself to make it his own. And I say this a lot. Teams take on the persona of their leadership. Dan Lanning, gritty, no nonsense, substance. And that's what Oregon is right now. So again, they're going to have a chance to compete for the Pac-12 title. And when they get to a bowl scenario or a college football playoff scenario against an SEC line of scrimmage or a Big Ten line of scrimmage, I think they're built now in this way to where they can hold their own and make those real games. So I'm excited to watch this the rest of the way. Oregon taking care of business, fought for a win, got a win, and probably as a result now, you would imagine they'll get a fair amount of clicks too by nature of what Dan Lanning said. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed right here. We appreciate you in advance of that. In regards to clicks, make sure you click that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at JD Paquel. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all, man. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.